The modern market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market, that is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some and or hopefully a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today, we have meme coins are going crazy across the board. We will get into those in just a little bit. Majors are also rising, with Sol outperforming just a touch again. Bitcoin's at 63k, ETH is at 2.4k, Sol at $148, up around 4%. And Pepe flips Aptos in market cap. It does more volume than Solana. And Frog becomes the largest meme coin by market cap, launched by Pump Fund at a $176 million. PopCap also absolutely flying compared to where it was just a week ago. We're going to get into all of that and more. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs, and a discussion on the growing protocol revenue on Solana, with multiple protocols generating $10 million or more annual revenue. So stay tuned for that. We have a full house today. We've got legendary Sam and Brett in the co-host seats. We are ready to get into it. But just before we do, just a reminder, friends, nothing that we say here is financial advice, because the market is very risky and we don't know anything either for sure or in general. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Brett, it's Monday. It's the 7th of October. How are you doing? How's the typhoon? Are you safe? Are you well?
There is no typhoon. It was all a lie. I'm doing well. You can see here, it's dark as shit. Frankly, here in Taiwan, I'm up on a floor, actually with Baseline, the guys from Blast. We're in the office working with them, hanging out. Yeah, having a good time.
That's fascinating. So so you are in the office with the Baseline team. Remember, if people are unfamiliar, the Baseline team are the team that launched the Machi token, this kind of token which is allegedly up only because it sets a baseline price for a token, and then the future demand kind of continues to make the price rise if the demand keeps rising. What are you up to there?
Yeah, so yeah, them. I've actually met a lot of people in Taiwan. There's a shit ton of people here. So those guys, I'm meeting Danger tomorrow. He's a DeFi, big crypto head, if you guys are aware of that account. Yeah, they're in town, so I met up with them and they invited me up to their office. So I'm up here just chilling, commingling. There's people from like Solen team, bunch of just ecosystem dudes. So yeah, it's fun to cut it up and kind of, shoot the shit.
I like it. I like a little bit of co-mingling. I like that phrase, typically used with respect to commingling of funds. No commingling of funds.
This time it's the people's. I can't. I've only been here a day. I'm digging back the layers. There may be some funds being commingled too. I cannot say.
Okay, maybe some early investments getting commingled over there. Sammy, welcome back. You're going to be doing a little bit of commingling of people later this week as well. How are you doing?
We are indeed, yeah. Events in London, so we've got Zebu later this week. So it'll be a local event to attend for 2 days. So if anyone else is in London, hit us up. I think we'll be there for both the days. So yeah, excited to get into it, but also a little bit rusty today. I had a few drinks on Saturday. It's taken 48 hours to recover.
It's showing your age.
Yeah, savage.
Unsurprising. Legendary, any commingling on your side? How are you feeling as we go into this Uptober week of Uptober? You know, the funny thing, I was looking at the YouTube thumbnails. I swear, literally 2 days ago, one of our YouTube thumbnails was titled "Crypto Crash Continues," and then literally on Monday, that might have been Friday or Thursday show, and then on Monday it's like majors are up, meme coins are pumping. It's just a funny like juxtaposition because they're literally right next to each other on YouTube.
Yeah, I had a good laugh when I created the thumbnails, thinking exactly about that. 2 days of crypto crashing continues, and you obviously have to use stronger words in the thumbnails for the thing to actually get some traction. And now we are back with meme coins exploding. And we are also at episode 358. It's been a while. Still recovering health-wise, so I spent the time reflecting on some of the modern market's history and some of my favorite scenes. And because I'm sick and I'm coughing a lot, I remembered that one time when it was just the two of us, and you were going through the Web3 Roundup, and you were sick as well, and you were coughing so hard. Basically, with the last energy that you had, with the last bit of voice that you had, you were like, "Legendary, please continue." I was like, this sounded literally like you dying on screen, dying on show. And
Yeah, that
Pete, tell me you're all right. Sammy's under the weather. Ledge is falling down. I feel great. I feel strong, and I'm ready for this show. I hope you are as well.
I'm feeling fantastic as well. Although, I mean, clearly the policy of this show, which is there is no such thing as illness, we have to carry on. So even if I wasn't, that is the official policy. But yeah, we're going to get into it. Just a quick thing before we get into the headlines and all the usual show as normal. Sam, I was asking you earlier to like do some analysis, and for the little segment you're going to be doing later, I wonder whether we need to check this correlation. When the modern market thumbnail of a YouTube show is crypto crashes, price is dumping, meme coins slaughtered, or something like that, how does price typically react over the next 44 hours? I wonder, 48 hours. I wonder if we are some type of signal, because obviously we're reporting on the news that's already happened, right? So if the crash has already happened, are we do we kind of catch that? I always like using media as a kind of signal in that respect. So
well, I hope we don't become a counter trading signal like the Aoki top or whatever. But yeah, we'll look into it.
Well, the thing, it wouldn't be us, right? It's just the market. If the market's down, we're just telling people that it is down. And if it goes up every time that you tell people it's down, that's okay. That's a good signal. Look, we're going to be talking about more signals, getting into some deep theses today about meme coins. Absolutely, everyone is absolutely obsessed with it. We're going to get into a bigger discussion, but let's hit the price action and the headlines as usual first, get you up to speed with everything that's been going on, starting with the majors. We've got Bitcoin up 1% at 63.6K, got ETH also almost up 1% at 2.4K, Solana up almost 2% to $148. Just on the meme side, while we're there, we've got Dogecoin up 2% to 11 cents, Pepe up 9%, WIF up 15%, Popcat up 12%. Moreover, Popcat is up 50% in the last 7 days. Remember, the markets were literally crashing a few days ago, and meme coins did get hit hard. So Pepe might be up 8% today, but it's down 6% on 7 days. Bonk is up 8% today, but it's down 5% on the 7 days, whereas Popcat is up 12% on the day and up 50% on the 7 days. And there's a few others like that now, like Mog, which is up on both the 24 hours and 7 days, and Nero, which is up 44% in a day and 36% over the last 7. So memes are just turbo running as well at the moment. Getting into the headlines themselves, we've got meme coins going crazy. A few more. Moodeng's up 130%. Keycat is up 75%. SPX 69%. Lock-in 42%. These are the biggest movers in the last 24 hours. We said the majors are rising as well. And then Pepe's flipping Aptos. Frog's becoming the largest meme coin by market cap, launched by Pump Fund at $176 million. Some notable sales from around the space. CryptoPunk VR selling for 33.45 ETH. Xcopy iRoller selling for 17.5 ETH. Xcopy Algo Bro selling for 12 ETH. The Xcopy editions continue to flourish aggressively at the moment. That is the price action. Those are the headlines. Legendary, should we head over to our NFT marketplace partner, Mintify, and see what is going on over there?
Yeah, let's do it. Honestly, in comparison, at least the ETH side of things in NFTs looks almost boring to what's going on in the rest of the market. Bored Apes up almost 1%, very close to reclaiming the 11 ETH floor, sitting at 10.98 ETH. We have Pudgy Penguins unchanged, but managed over the weekend at least to go back at a 10 ETH floor. We have Azuki's down 1% at a 5.32 ETH floor. We have Milady's up 6%, 3.18 ETH floor for them. In terms of some other movers, on the one hand, we have the Opepens. There they go. 51% over the last 24 hours. That happened of 16 ETH in volume. So not too large in terms of volume, but still also up 71% over the last 7 days. However, if you want to have more action on the JPEG side of things, definitely need to take a look at Ordinals. Ordinals are pumping. Bitcoin Puppets up 10% over the last 24 hours. Bitcoin Frogs up 16%. Bitcoin Wizards up 27%. So definitely more action, more volatility going on the Ordinal side of things. Even if we just scroll down a bit and take a look at the heat map, Flora forms are back 22% pump. Bitcoin Bandit's up 16%. It's a very, very green heat map that we can observe on the ordinal side of things.
I like it. I'm really glad that you brought up this ordinal stuff, because I've definitely been hearing chatter the last few days, last week or so, of a thesis developing amongst, well, I guess the general speculators. And the point was something like this. I'm going to try and find the post, which was written by the bonk guy. I don't know I think that's literally his name. Yeah, here it is. The bonk guy said that relative to Bitcoin's market cap, the Bitcoin beta is like significantly undervalued. If you look at runes, if you look at ordinals, and look at their market caps relative to Bitcoin's, it is significantly undervalued when you compare with ETH NFTs and ETH meme coins relative to ETH's market cap, and Solana meme coins and Solana NFTs when you compare it with Solana's market cap. So both ETH and Solana's like beta plays have much higher market caps and much like bigger share of the kind of major attention and market caps versus the Bitcoin stuff. And so they thought it was significantly undervalued. Legendary, do you sense any of that? Have you been thinking about that at all? Definitely the price action has been moving on ordinals, at least in particular for a while. Runes are kind of moving as well at the moment. Have you been thinking about that?
I mean, it's a concept that we touched on the show quite a while ago, right? And I think it's a hypothesis that we also came up with, but it's hugely dependent on its acceptance in the market. Like, obviously, if you look at the numbers, it makes sense. But the question is, does the market think like that? Yes or no? We've kind of seen it play out with Solana, with the concept of like relative multiples to all-time high and how far off certain things are. And Solana, off that hypothesis alone, had like a massive run, and obviously a lot of interest and meme connection, everything going down there. But I feel like this hypothesis with ordinals, it's occasionally shows up on the timeline, but it does not seem to have as much mind share as, say, the more soul-focused narratives. So while in theory I like it, I'm not sure if a lot of people or if consensus will be that we believe in that and hence we're going to pump up ordinals. That still remains to be seen.
Okay. Just trying to find the exact here we go. This was the post shared by the bonk guy, who, remember, is super famous for holding this insane long on bonk, which apparently he still has open, and has costed him like $1 million in just funding, but he's up multiple millions of dollars. But this was his thesis on Bitcoin, which I think, Bitcoin meme coins, which I'll share with people so they can get a handle on what this type of trader is thinking. They say Bitcoin meme coins could be the easiest 50 to 100x opportunity in all of crypto. Here's why. Let's do the quick mathematics. ETH meme coins market cap is 20 bill, Sol's is 9 bill, Doge market cap is 16 bill. On the other hand, Bitcoin market cap is 1.23 trillion, so significantly higher. ETH market cap 291 bill, Sol market cap 68 bill. In other words, Solana meme coins is 13% of the Sol market cap. ETH meme coins are 7% of the ETH market cap. Bitcoin meme coins is 0.16% of the Bitcoin market cap. So it's always interesting to like consider these ratios, but then the thing you need to think is this an important ratio? I mean, I'm sure there's lots of ratios that you can pluck out of anywhere and just say, oh, this one looks lower than the other. But the question is it an important one? Brad, I know you're kind of interested in these like ratios and when you compare two things together. Do you think this is like a helpful metric to look at and kind of compare with each other? And could Bitcoin meme coins be undervalued just for that reason?
So yeah, looking at this just off the cuff, and again, I'm not a big meme corner, but even the fact that Sol and ETH, the percentage against the market cap is so disjointed, like it's roughly 2x, kind of shows that it's kind of a ridiculous thing that doesn't have any real value, right? Because like the logic you're doing here is that, oh, the chain is going to have X% of meme coins, Y% of DeFi, Z% of whatever, and that they're all going to normalize to like a certain percentage because that's just humans doing whatever. But you can clearly see Ethereum is half of what Solana's is. So it just tells you that, yeah, the user base absolutely matters, and obviously the maturity of the ecosystem, all that stuff. So looking at that, and based on what he's saying, like I think he's kind of disproving himself right there just by looking at these numbers. But that said, the number is so dramatic, right? Like 0.16% relative to 7% relative to 13%. I think you can say easily, yeah, that probably normalizes or pulls to the center just a little bit. But to say that like, oh, you have a, you know, a 10, 20, 100 million, gajillion X out of this thing because it's going to absolutely come into line with those other two, I'm skeptical of that for all the reasons you pointed out, right? The tech isn't awesome. It's like cumbersome. It's kind of fake DeFi in my opinion. I'm not a big fan of the UTXO and Ordinals stuff that's being built on top of this stuff, but like it will pull up. I'd say it's safe to say because it's so dramatic. But I wouldn't get hopes that it goes anywhere close to those other two numbers.
I like it. That's kind of interesting thinking. So I'm hearing two important takeaways there. The first is the users matter, and the type of people and the type of transactions people are doing are matter. And on Bitcoin, people are clearly doing less of that type of stuff. So that is true. And yet simultaneously, the number is so dramatically lower than everything else that it still might be a play. So I think those two things can be true at the same time. Like to produce that kind of nuance as part of the discussion. We've got two other interesting points of discussion before we get into the big headlines for today as well. One is going to be on revenue from protocols, and Brett's going to deliver that segment. Something that's been catching my attention that I wanted to share with people. It's like the changing landscape for KOL slash KOL investments, or the stage of the cycle we are with investments. Obviously, everyone knows that when initially there's like a pre-seed investment that goes into these teams, then there's a seed round, and then at some point recently it became common for teams to decide like, right, we've got all these like big players in terms of we've raised all this big capital. They've helped us from a financial perspective, but we know how important marketing is, and therefore we need to get some attention towards our protocols. So what people have tended to do in the last 6 to 12 months is have this separate round that's a little bit later, specifically for KOLs, which are usually at a slightly better deal, slightly better terms, because they're desperate for marketing. Like they've on some level, they've already got the money that they need. They don't actually need more money. The thing that they need is the marketing. And one interesting offer came across my desk in the last week. Well, I won't say who it was yet, although we will probably do it and we'll disclose it when we do. But the structure seems to be now that because of where we are in the market, and so many KOLs and so many investors have already invested so much at some point earlier, whether that's in the summer, whether it's at the start of the year, they've got nothing else to give. But protocols still really, really need the marketing. And we're going into this turbo cycle of launches, right? Because everyone has held off their launch. No one wanted to launch in the summer. So people are still holding off, waiting for the market to really move. So protocols are still really, really keen on working with people. So something that came across was like this offer where like you put up the money, and instead of you needing to wait along the normal terms, you basically get that money back. Or 75% of that money you get back, and then 30% of it you get given in liquid tokens at the point of TGE. And then you still have the full value of the investment based on the normal terms of the deal. So that's an outstanding offer. I'm just going to repeat that to make sure people understand. Like, so just take an example of, say you want to put $10,000 in, it means that at TGE, you get $7,500 back. You get $2,500 via the liquid tokens of the protocol, and then your investment stands on at the same valuation as the VCs got in at. And yeah, sure, you're going to have to wait for the 1 year cliff, and then you have to you're vesting over however long. But that's kind of like a fantastic deal. I mean, I'm like still doing the due diligence, trying to make sure, like, is this definitely how it works? And it appears so, at least at the moment. So, Sammy, I know we've been talking a little bit about various investments and stuff. What's your kind of headline reaction to this? I don't know if I'd shared all of the details with you before.
Yeah, I think so. To me, it just sounds like you effectively get like a 70% discount on the value. So it's kind of like, well, they seem to be in need of this marketing. And I think we went through the whole process probably around about March, April time, where these protocols end up having the bargaining power, where all the KOLs were wanting these deals, and it kind of shifted. And I think we've kind of shifted back where actually a lot of these token sort of KOL offers or whatever aren't actually that profitable, and you barely make your money back at TGE. So is it actually worthwhile? So I think these protocols are kind of clued up to it, and they want to get the marketing in, they want to get the top KOLs in, so they're offering them ridiculous things to get in. But I've received there's a couple that I'm considering that are kind of 100% discount. So you effectively just get free tokens at TGE. So rather than you actually putting up capital and risking capital, if you believe in the project, you just get an allocation of tokens at a market cap that's similar to what these pre-seed or seed rounds were. So things are shifting.
I think that's definitely the point. And Brett, I know you want to come in on this. I think that's definitely the point. The shift in balance has happened where maybe KOLs got convinced or genuinely believed in some of these things at maybe the hype stage in maybe March or April. They deployed too much, and the bargaining power was with the protocols. Now it's kind of flipped. They need the KOLs and media and general media more, not just like individual KOLs, general media more. And so there's this shift that's happened. So I just wanted to bring that to people's attention because I think it's helpful for people to know what's going on the investment / media side. Brett, you seem to want to come in and want to have a take on this from Legendary as well.
Yeah, just a quick double down on what you're saying about marketing. So I've been going through. I did a post this morning about comparing a bunch of L2s, right, infrastructure stuff. And when going through this list of all these chains, there's a lot of them I frankly have never fucking heard about. But looking at the technical distinctions between them, there's basically none. And then I think about like how some of these things come to the forefront, right? You have certain people that are just really loud or really embedded within the ecosystem, and they're effectively just marketing, right? You get that one or two people that are KOLs that kind of just keep blasting this thing on repeat, and then all of a sudden it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because then spaces start talking about it, and then it starts growing, right? Like Abstract's obviously a very good one because they have Saigar and Luca right there, which like, yeah, they might have some technical distinctions, but like they're just really good at getting into the ecosystem and letting it grow naturally. And there's only so much of this liquidity, users, whatever, to go around. You need a strong voice. And yeah, I just say the momentum shifting has to go to like crypto native marketing is very hard to come by and is incredibly important because products are kind of just differentiated. I
mean, one headline way to differentiate yourself is partner with the modern market. That's just one idea that's come to my head. Legendary, final take on this topic before we move on. I know you'll have some thoughts.
Yeah, I like analyzing deal structures. I'm wondering what the idea behind that is, to have someone raise 10K to give them 7.5K back and essentially give them 2.5K in tokens, which is just a 2.5K ticket at the end of the day. And the only thing I can think of is that it looks larger on the cap table, that then it kind of looks like KOLs have contributed $1 million to this round, and 75% of those will be refunded. So essentially they only put 250K in. But it's a weird deal structure where you would do that other than to show a larger cap table. Is it to prove financial solvency of KOLs? I don't think so. But I don't understand this part. That I would like to understand it because that's the only reason, top of my head, without knowing obviously the partner or the exact that you have in mind, that I can think of.
So I kind of wondered the same thing, and I think a lot of these protocols don't actually need the money at this point. The thing that I thought is that it's probably a helpful thing to align the KOLs. Like it's almost like you have to give your money over for them to hold it. So make sure you do the damn job properly.
This whole thing's about incentives, baby. I mean, it's incentives.
So it's like, look, if you literally get it for free, are you going to do it in the same way that if they're holding your money and you have to wait a little bit? That's the only thing that I can think of might be helpful.
Now, that's even worse than you hold someone's money hostage to incentivize them to post. That's not a very intrinsically motivated relationship if you put it like that. So if I invest 50K and you're telling me that I only get that back if I do all my posts, I only get my 75% back if I do all my posts, that's not a very natural relationship, is it?
I don't know. I think it is. I think in this space, you've got to like investing in things. We're pretty used to things being like heavily financialized.
I was going to say I'm probably leaning more in towards the Legendary camp here. I do think it is to kind of rejig or smooth those numbers. I think about it from an accounting perspective, and ultimately you have to record things gross to start with. So you record the gross number and then you net off what you give back to the KOL. So I think it's probably more to do with that, sort of like magic, smoothing those numbers behind the scenes.
Yeah, I thought that, but then I'll tell you more after. But like this particular protocol in general, I just don't think they need the money. It's like have raised so much absurd money that I kind of went through that same thinking. Then I kind of checked it off because it's like, I don't know if that's what they need. So I don't know. Interesting discussion. Happy we had it in front of people so we can kind of hear some pushback as well. Just maybe more important takeaway for everyone is like, this is the kind of thing that's happening. Now you understand some of the shift in dynamics going on behind the scenes with investing and media. Let's move on to our next discussion point. We're obviously going to get into the big discussion on memes in just a little bit because there were a lot of spicy takes on the timeline. But before we do that, Brad, you've got a little segment for us here on Solana protocol revenue and just maybe how it compares with other stuff at the moment. Some people are bullish, and just wondered what you thought.
Yeah, man. So the post you're referring to is coming from Ryan Watkins. He's talking about the fees that are generated by some of the top protocols on top of Solana over the last 3 months, and then extrapolate that over the year and saying like, you know, it's just bigger than people are giving it credit for. And it is impressive, right? You look at the last 3 months, Jupiter and Radium, no surprise, over there at the top. And if you annualize the revenue, it's 75 and 63 million, respectively, for the two. You see this stuff, and what you ask is, go, okay, how do I get exposure to it? Is it important, and is there upside that I can capture? So I actually took these and ran it against like how the numbers are doing relative to their actual tokens that are on the market, just to get an idea of like, okay, is their token appealing by itself, and then relative to these fees broadly, right? And of those, the only one that really appeals to me is Radium, and that came up on my DEX comparison across chains and across other protocols a couple of months ago. And the reason is, if you look at the circulating supply of basically all of these tokens, they're all dog shit. Jupiter, Jito, yeah, all of them are, the circulating supply is under 15% for 3 of the top 4. And then you have Radium is at 50%, which is, you know, better, but still not awesome. And then you look at how much revenue they're actually generating relative to their total fully diluted value, and it's like 6%. So multiple still pretty impressive. Honestly, that's about the only one I would care about. And then comparing that to the rest of the ecosystem right now, I saw that so Radium's the one that I'm excited about, or interested in anyways, and it's the 3rd top generating DEX across all ecosystems. You have Uniswap and PancakeSwap on the 30 days generating more than them. So wow. The combination of shitcoining continuing to take place on Solana, Radium being the DEX that they all go to from Pump Fund, tells me that this thing is probably going to continue to do this stuff if you're a believer in the meme coin stuff. And then the tokenomics of this stuff is actually pretty decent. So yeah, that's the one I would pay attention to if I was looking at all of this.
Very interesting. Maybe so. Sounds like Radium is certainly seeing a lot of activity as a consequence of his relationship with Pump Fun. If you think that that's going to go well, that should do well. The tokenomics are better relative to the other main protocols on Solana. Maybe zooming out though, Brad, how does this stuff compare to ETH at all? Like, people continuously want to pit Solana stuff against ETH stuff all the time and make those comparisons.
So yeah, if you look at relative, again, Radium's the one I'm kind of focusing on, because like this covers a bunch of categories. You have some of those things from DPIN up to, you know, aggregators first, whatever. Radium's the one I was interested in because it's the one that seems the most sustainable, given that it's, you know, the thing that's gonna actually be used for, right, all the meme coining. So if you look at that relative to the ETH ecosystem, again, Uniswap and PancakeSwap are the 2 big ones. Aerodrome is actually tailing right behind it. Let's see, the 30-day fees. You have 32 million for Uniswap. You have 26 million for PancakeSwap, and then Radium's at 20. So it's not too far behind them, but it is a singular chain versus all of those that have 9 chains, 25 chains, and then Aerodrome on a singular chain, but it's only generating 6 million. So on a pure fee generating basis, it's hanging up there with the top across all ecosystems, not far behind Ethereum's Uniswap, which again is across 25 chains. So it's a bunch of shit. And then, yeah, just broadly, like, are these fees good? Because a lot of people look at fees whenever they're comparing Ethereum to L2s, whatever. Yeah, they're trending it. They're doing well.
I like it. That's a excellent summary there. I like putting it into perspective against ETH, because to be honest with you, I was looking at the charts the other day, looking at the market caps, and I mean, I've been in ETH bull for a long time. Yes, I play around in Solana as well. Just looking at Solana being almost, it's more than a quarter. It's between 25 and 30% less. Sorry, it's 70 million. 70, what's this one? Basically, I was looking at Solana and it's just like, I feel like it's undervalued versus the other stuff. And then that's obviously been playing out. It's
You're talking native asset, Sol, the token.
Yeah. I was just looking at that. And yeah, I don't know.
I do think that, I mean, there's a lot of Saigar just dropped a post from him in our private chat for you to share, but that there's stuff that's in the pipeline that could effectively continue to improve ETH. And there's obviously discussions around sort of L2s, and it's just a different model to Solana. I know there's potentially going to be some L2s on Sol, but ultimately it just feels like a kind of L1 focused chain versus ETH, which has that whole L2 infrastructure. And I think Saigar's post here talks about a new EIP that could potentially increase sort of block times, blobs, and a few other points there. So I think like it could change over time. But I do think that Solana is ultimately just going to be a better user experience for retail than ETH, at least in the medium to short term. Perhaps in the long term that might shift, and maybe it kind of goes to L2s. But until you have that kind of user interface that's kind of seamless for ETH, I just don't think that ETH will ever be what Solana is. I think it's just going to appeal to two different kind of audiences.
It's great that you brought up the Ether kind of having this attempt to make it faster. But Brett, I know you want to, I saw you comment on that, so I'll give it to you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so I made that same post. Actually, MFR stole that from me, FYI. He liked mine and then posted it. So anyways, yeah, I found that in the EIP board, and that was a guy from Nethermind that did that. And don't get your hopes up for it. So like in any meaningful time frame, right? Pectra is what's coming Q1 next year. It's not going to fit into that, which means the next upgrade's coming at least 6 months after that. So even if it goes well, like the thing's not going to be in for 9+ months. And then even then, the big battle that's raging inside the Ethereum ecosystem is you do these things that bumps the throughput of Ethereum, and that's what this is. It's just makes the block times go from 12 seconds down to 8 seconds. It's faster, but because you're doing more blocks per year now, all of the requirements go up, right? Your bandwidth goes up, your storage goes up, everything goes up because you're pushing more content throughout the entire year, which means solo stakers are being attacked, which means like everyone's like freaking the fuck out, right? Because they want to make it super decentralized. They don't want people with their Raspberry Pi to get mad. So like there's a big fight going on whenever something like this is proposed. And it's not going to come anytime soon. And whenever that does happen, it's still not going to be anything even close to what Solana is doing. So just letting everyone know that it's good. You will see this stuff happen over time. You are going to see some stuff happening in this next upgrade that does help with throughput, but it's not a saving grace. And it's not a Solana like equalizer.
Is it also a catch-22 where effectively if you got greater throughput and kind of the cost of transactions goes down, ETH then gets burned less, so it becomes more inflationary or less deflationary?
So this would actually increase the issuance as well, unless they have a corresponding, because the amount of ETH that gets emitted is per block, and this is making more blocks per year. So unless they adjust the issuance rate along with this, that makes it faster, you're actually issuing more ETH over the course of the year.
Fantastic summary. I have heard that people think that the deflationary programmable money, like the deflationary part, should probably get dropped. It's maybe one of the less reasonable or less realistic aspects of this vision for ETH. But we will continue to follow it as always. Great summary, Brad. Appreciate that. We're going to keep it moving. We're going to get into the bigger meme discussion in just a little bit, but I want to give Legendary a chance to give us a bit of a general majors breakdown first before we get into the meme discussion in a bit. Legendary.
Absolutely, yeah. Here's what I want to do. I want to first take a bit of a look at Bitcoin and then revisit some of the major narratives that we've been speaking throughout the year, whether it's Telegram, whether it's other L2s, a bit of gaming, and just see what has happened in those other segments around the like top 100-ish of coins, and pick a couple examples and have a bit of an understanding what's going on with the price action there. So obviously, just to put things into perspective and set the scene, starting with BTC, as we said at the start of the show, we are up 1% over the last day, basically down 1% over the last 7 days, and up 15% over the month. So that is the big picture on what's going on with BTC. I'm gonna do that very, very quick for ETH and Solana as well. I love it when CoinMarketCap suddenly is changing to euro from dollars when I just do one click, but doesn't matter. We just want to look at the percentages. So ETH is basically mirroring the same, up over the last day, down more over the last 7 days, down 6 versus 1%, and still up over the last month, but only 7.5% versus the 15 that we saw with Bitcoin. And then real quick, same exercise for Solana, up over the last day, down almost as much as ETH, down 5% over the last 7 days, up 15%, same amount as BTC over the last month. So over the last month, Solana isn't really outperforming BTC. They're doing exactly the same. However, now the more interesting thing is, let's take a look. Good that I looked at these tabs before. So we go back to dollars, away from euro on the screen, at some of the other things. We have Toncoin sitting at $5.25. We had that correction after the arrest of the founder. However, it seems to mimic the same pattern, being down 10%, more volatility over the last 7 days, being up 13%. So again, very, very similar to tracking BTC's performance because it's up 13% over the last month. Another thing I wanted to look at is Near, one of the blockchains we basically never speak about, that just does a lot of transaction throughput in the background. And Near is an interesting one because it's up 6% over the last day. Over the last month, it's up 40% actually. So there seems to be definitely money flowing into some of the alts. We can also see that even if you look at the 24-hour volume, that's up 84% to 300 mil. So there's some serious trading action going on in there. We see a similar thing with BitTensor that we also touched on. That's that AI token that, apart from Funky, nobody really seemed to understand what's going on with them. At least Brett and I weren't able to figure it out to its fullest extent. Up 11% over the day, up 160% over the last month. So similar to what we just saw with Near Protocol, 140% increase in trading volume. Obviously coming after a weekend, but still a massive, massive difference and a massive increase over the last month. Now, if we go to Aave, we talked a lot of Aave news, a lot of interesting things coming out of that ecosystem. Just to touch on the DeFi side of things and see how that's doing. Stable over the last day, down 6%, so similar performance to ETH, which was also down 6% over the last week. Up 14% over the last month, so not really even outperforming Bitcoin. If we take a quick look at the L2s, just picking Optimism, Arbitrum to represent that. Optimism up 4% over the last day, up 18%, so definitely outperforming ETH on that over the last month. We see a similar picture with Arbitrum on the 1 month perspective, up a bit less though, up 11%. Obviously, Arbitrum facing a bit more pushback on the timeline than Optimism is currently doing. Just two more that I want to pick out. One of them is FTX, because I just think it's hilarious that this token, despite the warning that the bankruptcy proceedings are underway, the FTT token has no longer any use, maybe liquidated by the estate to pay creditors. That thing is still seeing a lot of price action, 7% up over the last day, up 24% over the last 7 days, up 100%, doubled up its price over the last month. I have no idea who these people are who are trading that, but it sees, even though the trading volume is down 40% over the last 24 hours, still 80 mil in trading volume. So there's still people trading that token, and not to an insignificant extent. Last thing I want to touch on, for whatever reason, CoinMarketCap is switching now back to light mode, is Portal. Bit of a representative of what's going on with the gaming side of things, because it kind of is tracking some of the other tokens, Pixels, etc., on the gaming side. Up 1% over the last day, still down 20% over the last 7 days. However, zooming out on the monthly perspective, up 16%. Obviously, and we all know that if we extrapolate further and look since the inception, we're still down 93% on Portal. But it's interesting to see that there's seemed to be a bit of a positive momentum on the gaming side of things over the last month, but nothing really that keeps up with some of the alts like Near Protocol, who again has done 40% to BitTensor, coming from the AI side of things, that has done 160% over the last month.
Very, very interesting. Great breakdown. There's a few maybe things that I would draw away from that. One is that obviously ETH is underperforming, unfortunately. ETH is underperforming everything, basically. Some of these alt L1s have seemed to be moving. You mentioned Near, which I think is an L1, right? But Sui is also one that has been like ripping in the last week or two. Clearly a bit of an AI narrative as well with BitTensor and things like that. And then maybe the ETH beta, whether that's things like Optimism or others just, doing a little bit better than ETH itself. So interesting set of learnings there. Any key takeaway for you, Legendary, before we move on?
That there's definitely a lot of volatility to be had outside of memes as well, if you don't want to trade or chase memes for whatever reason. I think there's interesting things to look at. I think alternative L1s, you mentioned Sui, I'll mention Say. Say is up 60% over the last month as well. So there's definitely movement outside of ETH to be had if you want to chase a bit more volatility, which again doesn't get any interest or any love on the timeline at all. Like if we check, at least my timeline is full of memes and a bit of gambling on Polymarket. Nobody talking about Near or BitTensor or those kind of things. But they do get serious trading volume and serious price action with them as well.
Do you think as well, like just two of those that you brought up, the FTT token, I know memes have got quite a strong kind of value proposition at the moment. There's quite a strong focus there. Do you think that could ever effectively become a meme? Because if I don't know if they can actually, if FTX can actually issue more of the token, whether it's hard capped, but if that is hard capped and there is kind of that whole story behind it, like that does feel like the price action kind of started again when memes started to take off. So I wonder if these speculators have kind of stepped in there. And then the second point that just I wanted to make is I was surprised that like Aave hasn't really moved too much, especially with the Grayscale Trust news. I think that to me was quite significant.
That was super surprising to me as well.
Yeah, because I think we spoke like last week around the they're kind of institutions are kind of coming for those fully diluted tokens that have that history. And I don't know, like I think that to me that's super interesting, and maybe that's undervalued.
On the FTT point, quick thought on that. It might be a couple of people's hypothesis. I don't think it can play out, because if the thesis is that new people buy memes, you would have to be a part of the story and a part of FTX's downfall for the token to have like any significance to you. And otherwise it's like hard to understand why that is a meme. And I don't know, Pepe is something that has more recognition. Mudeng is obviously currently cute and trending all over the world. But I think with FTX, you would need the historical context for new people to understand why that is memeable. But maybe I'm also like completely mid-curving it with that take. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's a terrible meme. I mean, I can see where your brain's going. I wouldn't be surprised if there are some people who want to send it. But yeah, that's a dangerous one. Okay, we keep mentioning memes because that is the thing that's going crazy. Let's get into that discussion in just a second. Just before we do that, let's get you up to speed with everything else that's happened in space in the last 24 hours with the Web3 Roundup from the snapshot, which is pinned up top. Number one, BlackRock makes presentation on decreasing purchasing power of USD as part of Bitcoin presentation. If you haven't looked at the snapshot, have a look at some of the slides. They're really trying for you guys. They're really trying to send Bitcoin by comparing it with the decreasing purchasing power against the USD. Thanks to BlackRock for that. Coinbase seeks early appeals in case versus the SEC. Len Sassaman is the favorite to be named as Satoshi on HBO documentary Polymarket Bet. He's sitting at 38.5% at the moment. That documentary is supposed to air tomorrow. UAE brings in new laws to prohibit businesses and influencers shilling tokens without transparency and risk warnings, whilst they have also just eliminated VAT on crypto transfers. I think it used to be 5% on cryptocurrency transactions, similar to commercial transactions, but now they are sending those to zero. Interesting move for both individuals and businesses in the UAE. Next, Vitalik sells $300,000 of meme coins. Solana NFT volume hits a 3-year low in September. And finally, as we mentioned at the top of the show, Bitcoin puppets are up 10%. Bitcoin wizards are up 30%, 0.1 Bitcoin. all kinds of positive price action on the ordinals side of things. Look, we have to talk about memes now because it's the price action has really been pretty crazy. So I'm going to hand off to Sam here, who's going to give us a little bit of an update on memes across the board, and then we'll get into a bit of discussion on some pretty interesting takes on what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, memes are all over the timeline. I think with the Mudang run up recently, and probably more recently, Fwog, which I just love that name. It's just really hard. It's like a mouthful to say. But I mean, those two to me are quite interesting. And I think just seeing that mass appeal outside coming into crypto from Mudang, and then also Fwog, gives me the same vibes that Bohm did, in terms of you've got this like artist that's kind of at the core of it. And people are kind of rallying around that. And I've seen EB7, so Eric, kind of make it his personality. He's now got the pudgy Fwog PFP. So I think there's just a lot of momentum happening. And I think I always, as an analyst, I kind of always question, well, is there any way of like an indicator that we can use to understand, like, is this likely to pop off again? Can we front run that? And Bcheck and I spoke about the open interest and looking at volume. And I think that could be a good indicator, and it's trying to work out whether that's leading or lagging. And I've put in a link to CoinGlass, which effectively, it kind of looks like CoinMarketCap, but it's got a few extra indicators on there. So if you go to just on coinglass.com on the main page, there's a cryptocurrency data analysis, and one of the columns got open interest, volume, and you can kind of filter by those to get a gauge. And if you filter by open interest, I mean, at the moment, memes are just dominating in terms of the open interest. I think Nairo's over 166% open interest, and a lot of the other ones like WIF, Pepe, Mog, all seem to be kind of similar sentiments. So, but linking that back to volume, I think linking it back to the majors, I'm kind of sensing that once you kind of see an uptick in those majors, so a bit more volume going through Bitcoin, ETH, some of those other ones, and then ultimately a bit of a run up, I think people feel comfortable in their meme coin bags and try and front run the next sort of high risk asset, which seems to be memes at the moment. So that is just kind of what I'm generally seeing. But in terms of like linking the open interest in those majors to meme coins specifically, it doesn't seem to have too much correlation. It's almost the opposite. And I don't know if that's because people are effectively swapping out of ETH, SOL, Bitcoin into the likes of Runes, Mog, or WIF. So it's very hard to tell. And I think without digging down deeper into the flows of those transactions, it's hard to see on a more granular level. But ultimately, if you see a slight uptick in the majors, or a bit of volume coming through, then people do seem to try and send memes from what I'm looking here from a high level on CoinGlass. But I do think that there's probably a bit of a segmentation in the market, that they are different market participants. So, and the amount of capital that's being put through each of these is very difficult to kind of find that correlation, because I think if you look at the volumes on Bitcoin, ETH, SOL, it's very different to the amounts, the liquidity that goes through. I use Fwog as an example. Like I traded a few thousand earlier today, and that was literally had a 5% price impact on through Phantom Swap, which you're just not going to get through some of the bigger dexes and majors. So there is some correlation to a certain extent, but I would go more off market sentiment as opposed to looking at volume.
Like it. Thanks very much for those takes. For a little bit more context, maybe just to remind people of the kind of price action that we've seen in the last 24 hours, things like WIF are up 15%, Bonk's up 9%, Popcat's up 11%, Brett is up 7%, Mog is up 16%, Nero's up 48 somehow. Giga is up 8. Turbo is up 15. Dog is up 7. Pepe.
It's making you feel compelled to play around in it, because I see the stuff and I like the numbers are going crazy, and it makes me want to like post on it, say something, do whatever. But it's just so not my thing that I'm just like, I'm going to focus post through this shit with my, like, I'll post nerd stuff knowing only nerd people will care about it, and all like the timeline is owned by memes, but I don't care because I want to double down on like the things that actually interest me versus the thing that's like my lizard brain is pulling me towards.
I think there's a lot less tangible stuff to follow. That's why, like, I'm similar to you. I struggle with it unless something is just like a eureka moment. Like for me, I like Dark Farms, which is like the artist behind Bohm. So when I saw that, like I got into the pre-sale because I was like, I don't care, like I just really like it. I think it's similar with Fwog because it's like, what is the artist there? And actually, I quite like his work, so I'd happily buy a bit of that. And I think there are certain memes that I would be willing to buy into, but I wouldn't just get down into the trenches and trade shit coins just because for the sake of it, because there's just no real fundamental analysis behind it. And that just isn't my bag. I'm just not, I just hate speculating. I'm quite risk averse, but
So you'll only buy the meme coins that are closest to NFT collections. They have to have art and look cute. And
I think there is maybe there is something to that. Like that's just my own trader thesis. Same with Mudeng, right? Like I see all the timeline talking about it. I see like all these massive news outlets talking about it. Oh, and there's now a Solana shitter called Mudeng, so I'm going to buy some of that. But I think that's just generally my thesis. Like I'll buy something if I have high conviction in it, but otherwise I'll just leave meme coins alone generally.
Like it. I've actually got a post kind of answering that question directly, Brad, because I was doing some thinking on the same thing. I'm going to try and find it. It's in my drafts at the moment. And this is what I'd written earlier today. I'm going to post it later. I said, I think a lot about what my unfair advantage is. People too often think in terms of where the unfair returns are, but not enough on what their unfair advantage is. If you have an unfair advantage in X and X is a 3 to 5X opportunity over the next 12 months, that is good. If you get tempted by the unfair returns in Y because Y is a 100X opportunity over the next 12 months, that is bad if you have no unfair advantage in Y. I think that's what you're kind of speaking to when it comes to meme coins. So it's like, yeah, we all know that this is a 100X opportunity. And I'm not even saying that that means you should not participate in Y, but I think from a risk return perspective, you have to get full value from what your unfair advantage is, or make it your unfair advantage. If if you think it's so good, then go and do the work to make it your unfair advantage. Because the 3 to 5X in whatever your unfair advantage actually is probably, well, that's still fantastic. And then maybe you can throw away a little bit into the 100X play, but you don't have to stress about it, I don't think. That's where mind is going with it.
I think it also depends on like liquidity, because if you've got a significant amount of capital, you won't be able to make those 100Xs on like a small token that has low liquidity. Whereas I think like I look at people that are deploying into Abstract or putting it into Blast, like back in May, like I think they had like say 1,000 ETH, like I use OSF as an example, put 1,000 ETH in there, like was looking for that native yield plus some little bit of upside, but you can't really just deploy 1,000 ETH into any kind of small little meme coin.
Quick take on that, because I've been thinking on that as well, and someone posted, and I'm glad that I found it on that short notice, an analysis on Ansem, basically a back test. What would happen if you had bought every single thing that this person out of 40K tweets was able to find that Ansem has ever shilled? And you obviously would have top performers like With, where you're up 5,300%. And a shit ton of tokens where you're down a lot. But the average, that's the interesting part, the average comes out at 150% up. And that sounds a lot. But if you look at Bitcoin over the last year, BTC is up 125%. So you're barely, if you're buying everything that Ansem is telling you, which is not the way you should trade meme coins, by the way, but he's one of the most prominent figures. So it was interesting to look at that comparison. You would barely outperform BTC. And again, going back to my Uber driver, who is holding only BitTensor, he is up more than Ansem, all of compared basically on that analysis over the last month alone. So I do think there's value in Sammy's thesis to be like, look, fuck it, I'm not in the trenches. I buy the things that I think I'm cute. I can't be the only one with that investment hypothesis. And very much truth in what both of you, B and Brett, have been saying in terms of focus on what are your unfair advantages. And even though that some of the numbers look very, very intriguing, like the 5.3% return on With, the reality is everyone is posting their wins, no one's posting their losses. And if you look at the accumulated data, yes, you will have people who have made millions with meme coins, but you're most likely not going to be one of them, and you're most likely not going to outperform the people who have a large follower base and are able, sometimes, not saying that Ansem is doing that, but there's definitely a lot of pump and dump going on in memes. You're not going to be likely to play that game if you don't have at least access to the same amount of information. Always consider we're here on the information poll that we've been speaking about like so often on the show. So even though that I sometimes get the meme FOMO to do more than I do the same thing as Sammy. I like Mudank. I saw it on TikTok trending with the makeup tutorials. Thought it's cute, bought it, did fine with it. But then I, see people posting those wins, and it's helpful to take that step back and have someone look at a more holistic analysis. And even if that defective, horribly hard to pronounce that name, person isn't perfectly right with the backtest, I do think that even if the number isn't exactly 150% for the average, and I think median return is minus 55%, by the way, I think that the indicator that it provides is a very helpful one that at least helped me to cope with my FOMO a bit better.
I think also if you're posting wins, you're not from London. Don't post wins if you're in London. You'll get mugged.
Excellent conclusions to draw the show to its conclusion today. We've got some interesting more stuff to talk about, memes and some of the takes that people were sharing, but I think we'll save some of those for discussion point tomorrow. This is obviously something we'll keep coming back to. That was a great show. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to legendary Sammy and Bread being in the co-host seats for today, and thank you for joining us. As always, remember, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, for 1 hour, 7 a.m. Eastern time on X Video, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Have a wonderful day. Take care. We will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.